Hello, everyone. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this webinar on test taking and timing strategies to score 720 on the GMAT. First things first, can you guys hear me clearly? Let's make sure that you guys can hear me clearly. Okay. Yes. So now I think I can see that on YouTube we have folks. So welcome to this webinar once again. My name is Rajat. I'm one of the co-founders of GMAT, and I'm going to be your co-host today. The topic of this YouTube live session is test taking and timing strategies to score 720. And usually, I know you're used to hearing from me, but this time I thought I'd really bring folks who actually help you guys get to that score of 720 or higher. So we have a couple of people from our customer success team. Your main host today will be Dhananjay, and then your co-host will be Archit. So Dhananjay, over to you.
Thank you, Rajat. Firstly, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody who's joining this session. I'd really appreciate you coming and watching this session. But before I get into the session, I just wanted to introduce you to one of my most trusted colleagues, Archit. He's a co-host with me in this session.
Hello, everyone.
Cool. So let me just begin this session, guys. And to start this off on the right note, so I'm not Rajat, clearly, and I hope you enjoyed this session as much as you enjoyed when Rajat is taking the session, right? So this session, I want to make this session as valuable to you as possible and as articulate as possible that I can be to help you really get to the 720 plus score we talk. So to kick off this session, let me ask you a simple question. Right? What does it take to score a 720 plus score on the GMAT? In one word, if you just have to sum it up in one word, what does it take to score 720 plus on the GMAT? I would really love to get your thoughts on this because that will help me frame my arguments going forward in the session. Let's wait for a minute or two and just get some replies on this. Interesting, really nice. Intelligence, excellence, got it. Focus, got it. Oh, perfect. So there's really, really good replies, guys. And the answer is all of this actually, right? And so much more as you would come to imagine it. And this is exactly what I wanted you to understand. And all of you have given really, really good answers, by the way. And I'll tell you why once we go into the next slide. So here's how GMAT works. When you go into the exam, there's a 50-50% chance of being successful or not, right? And that's precisely how it works in life as well. So when you start preparing, it's all about ensuring that you want to be successful versus ensuring that you don't fail, right? So the possibility of success is 50-50. That's the probability. It's a very simple thing. Now, given that you're here for this session, I assume that you're not this 50% of people already. So very happy to see that. Moving on now. So if now working hard to really score well on the GMAT, in addition to concentration, motivation, and all these things you've mentioned, is a prerequisite. And I genuinely want to tell you that the benefit of working hard is something that kind of extends beyond the GMAT as well when you eventually go to B school. Okay, now what's the next bit that really helps you get to the score, right? And this is pretty much what you mentioned on the same lines that you mentioned. The proper study plan. Now, I cannot emphasize enough, and this is exhibit A when it comes to being successful on the GMAT, right? So remember this, a proper study plan. The second bit, uh, so a method in madness. So a GMAT is about so many resources out there. It's very important to have something that works for you. So Ravi mentioned following a methodology. It needs to be a singular and focused methodology, and obviously it needs to be the right one as well. So method in madness is the second bit. Now, moving forward, so there's people obviously who don't have a study plan and don't follow a method, right? And now the last proponent of really doing well on the GMAT is getting feedback, constant feedback with supporting data, right? So till you really don't till you're not supported by colossal evidence, you wouldn't say that, all right, this is something I'm going wrong at, right? So when it comes to the third thing that's really important for you guys to understand to score well on the GMAT, it's feedback and data. And I'm going to reiterate this to you because this is probably one of the most important slides of this entire presentation. A study plan, the right study plan, a method and madness, and feedback and data. So we're going to move on to the next slide. And basically,
DJ, just
before,
one,
yeah,
just
yeah,
1 second, already. So, guys, I think when DJ says this is the most important slide, I think this is probably something that tells you why. So, let's start with this. What percentage of people get to a score of 720? Very simply, what percentage of people, in your opinion, get to that score? Let's get a few responses. The question is, what percentage of people get to that score of 720, or in fact, even higher? The right answer is about 8% of people, Ravi, get to that score of 720. But let's kind of a simplification. Let's put it at 10%. I think a 10% is a more nice rounded number over here. And what this chart really shows is that why is it that 10% of people get to that score of 720? And essentially, what this um, shows us, if you look at point A, half the people who take the GMAT don't even work hard. But those who work hard, even those guys have a 1 in 5, 1 in 6 chance of getting to that score. And then the reason why that chance is low is because a good chunk of them don't have a proper study plan. And those who do, actually, a quarter of them do get to that score. But then why is it that the remaining don't? Because even when they have a good study plan, as they execute on it, they don't look at data, they don't incorporate feedback into their preparation. But those who do, which is what we want to get to point C over here, half of them get to that. Now, if you increase the number of feedback points to that, that's when that number gets to that 80%. And in this webinar, what we want to get to that point is to really say, how can each one of you increase that probability of getting to that score of 720 from that 10%, which is what you start with, to that 80%, which is where you want to get to. And that's kind of all we'll talk about in this webinar over here. So do you guys agree that's a good goal to have? To increase that likelihood of getting to that score of 720 or higher by 8 times or so, or 5x or 8x overall? Does it seem like a goal that's worthy enough to pursue? Let's get a few yeses, or if there are no's over there, then let's get a few no's as well. But yes, it seems like a goal that's worthy enough over there. So let's move forward with that. And DJ, we call him DJ,
yeah.
although his name is Dhananjay.
Got it. So, as Rajat really rightly mentioned, right, it's all about improving the possibilities of success. And who is successful? I'm going to reiterate this again. A person who has the right plan, a person who has a methodology on all of this madness, and a person who is being constantly fed with the right feedback and the precise data points that will help him improve, right? So remember these three things, and when you remember these three things, remember these names as well. And I want you to have a look at these scores. These are well above 720, and getting these scores is extremely difficult because this is 98th percentile and above, right? So remember that it's extremely, these are really good scores. So what is it that really set them apart? They just basically ticked off these boxes that we are talking about here, thereby improving the probability of their success. They created the right plan, they followed the right methodology, and finally, they got the right feedback and the data in front of them, right? And then you can go ahead and see the scores yourself. I mean, the results kind of speak for themselves. But here is a very interesting data point too. Look at the amount of time that they've taken to really do well. And this is, let me put this into context. Someone tells you that I'm going to come to you And I'm going to say that within 3 months or within 2.5 months, you can get a 750 or 760. You would jump on that offer, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure I would. And I wish someone had conducted the session when I was giving the GMAT. So, I mean, that's the point here, right? I mean, it just improves your chances of success. And this is exactly what the session is about. Now, you have another block over here, another block of students who are also successful, right? But what is the key difference? Let me take you back to this slide and then show you the key difference. The students that were not successful the first time around and were successful ultimately, they kind of stumbled upon here. They kind of lost their way here and then said, okay, hang on. I don't have the right plan. I don't think I'm doing things the right way. Can you please fix this? Right. And that's where they went from here to here. This is where they joined this pool and they got the feedback and data, and clearly you can see the results there. But it took them longer. That's one. Look at these data points here. It took them more than about 5 months to get there. And they also took multiple attempts. Multiple attempts means more investment into the GMAT, both emotionally, mentally, and physically as well, right? So, I mean, that's something that you need to put into perspective and remember. It's not just about improving the probability of success, but it's about reducing the amount of time that you achieve success in as well.
I think, Dhananjay, it's also worthwhile to mention that these guys, even when they were in their first attempts or first couple of attempts, they worked equally hard. It's not that the hard work, the effort was
True.
lacking in the first few attempts. It was just that that effort wasn't directed in the right direction. So I think what we're trying to really say is um, success, if you go on the right path, comes faster, a lot more assured. But there are people, those of you who probably are not following a stringent study plan, you guys can, it'll probably take you longer, but you guys, because you've already invested that time, but from that point on, once you have that right study plan, that path to success can be fairly short. So if you look at the time to succeed from the time these guys, the second attempt guys had the right study plan, that's in that 32 to 90-day period. It's just that this is the total time for prep. Okay. All right, DJ, let's move forward.
Yeah. So the reason why these people, we've called them not successful, but potentially successful. So you need to understand why here, right? And I'm going to take you back to that slide. Now, again, these people, it's not that they didn't work hard. They worked hard, but they kind of got lost over here, and they never made their way back over here, which is why they were not successful immediately, right? And they can be successful if they go back and join those pool of candidates where you create the right study plan, you are following your methodology, and you're constantly getting feedback. So, I mean, as you can see over here, now, again, the same data points that I want to show you, that even after spending so much of time working so hard, it's life shattering when you see a score that really doesn't meet up to your standards, right? I mean, that's something that resonates with everybody. You put in a lot of effort and you've put in so much of time, and look at the amount of time that this person is putting. He's put in 9 months of his life. That, let me put this into perspective. Every day now with COVID and everything around, life changes, right? Can you imagine 9 months, one thing, one goal, and that kind of doesn't work out? So you want to spend your time towards the right thing and in the right direction, right? And this is exactly what we're trying to show you over here. Rajat, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think you pretty much addressed it. I think the links over there, once you get the PDF, you can go read their stories, is something that I would really say. But yes.
Moving on to just the agenda of the entire session. I think I said the agenda with the third slide where we actually show you the decision tree, right? We just want to, drill it into you that the right plan, method, and just constant feedback is what we're going to talk about. But here's how we're going to do that as well. This is the first block is more about just the introduction. Who are we? I'm going to introduce you to the entire team here. We work day in and day out for your success. And the second block is going to be more about setting the right context and what the GMAT is really about so that you understand how to succeed, right? It's very important to have that context. The third block, again, about the most important thing, setting up your study plan. And the fourth block, which is where I really want to spend a chunk of my time, is the feedback and the iterative strategies, which is why you've actually come for this session as well, right? I mean, the study plan and the iterative strategies. And then finally, we're going to close it off with a quick question and answer session where you can go ahead and rack my brain around anything. So just getting into the session, and before I go forward, let me introduce you to who I am. I have scored 700 on the GMAT. It's come with multiple attempts. So even I fall in the other category, by the way. So I understand the pain. It's not like I didn't work hard, to be honest. I work with the strategy team here at GMAT. We do very, very interesting things in the strategy team, and I'm going to talk about it in the next slide. But before I do, I must say that in my experience here, I've worked with a bunch of students, but I've been able to work with more than 100 successful students. So I can see those key characteristics that it takes to really succeed, right? And there's a pattern there. There's a pattern in all of those people. And the reason I really wanted to take this session was this, because these are the things that were in common in all of them, right? They just increased their chances of success. So, I mean, this is me. And as Rajat mentioned, everybody calls me TJ. Let me introduce you to the team. The fun fact about this entire team is the unique skill set of each one of these people that you see here. So Archit really, really can connect with all of you as well because he's closely associated with the GMAT. He's given the test, and he's worked on a multitude of products that you see on eGMAT today. So he's a tenured employee here. Ashutosh in himself is a quant whiz. He's given a lot of exams and pretty much aced all of them. So he knows what it takes to succeed, and that's really important. Deepak is from IIM Ahmedabad. For those of you who don't know IIM Ahmedabad, it's a premier business school of India. It's fantastic. Getting in is a pain itself, and it's like getting a 720 plus on the GMAT in the CAT, right? And finally, there's Nawa, who's had more than 10 years of work experience working with customers, really understanding how to manage teams and understanding the pain points of people who are using products, right? Now, here's what the GMAT strategy team does. And this is exactly something that we really, really want to focus on. And I can speak proudly of as well. Now, forget the number of hours there. That's immaterial. It is the quality of responses that you're going to get, the kind of the empathy and the motivation that is more important to really guide you along your path, right? And there's a clear level of metric where we are creating student success month on month for all of you. Now, the more interesting byproduct of our work is we spend a lot of time to take feedback from you. So when we say that feedback and data is important, we're taking that from you as well. So we're learning what we are teaching. It's quite beautiful in a way, right? And we spend all of that time to improve your experience. And that's something that is very, very centered around what we want to do. And why is this possible? It's because we've really trained on the kind of issues that you guys face, right? And the reason why we know all of this is we've worked with so many students. We've worked with students day in and day out, right? Which is why it's very, very important for us to create success. Moving on now. And here's how I want to introduce these slides to you. Every review that you see, every support personnel that you see it is for, there's a clear indicator, right? So over here you can see it's a study plan. It's a study plan that worked for this particular individual. The next review is it has multitude of points again. So it has study plan, it has a feedback, and it has the course corrective actions as well that Archit helped the student out with. And frankly, they go out of their way to really talk about it. Now we're talking about Ashutosh. Now Ashutosh is very, very data centric. So his study plans and feedback are very, very precise. And this is precisely why the student really did well as well. Now let's move on to me. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about this. No point gloating about yourself. I'm going to move on to the next one. Yeah. So the next block.
DJ, I just want to really talk about this. So not just this one, just in general. So the thing that I want to really emphasize on is that at EGMAT, customer success has its own dedicated function where we have about 8 individuals who work full-time just on this. So these guys don't work on creating content. Guys don't work on teaching, answering subject matter queries. They're purely helping you ace the GMAT, directing you in the right direction. And if you look at the review section on GMAT Club, all of these come from that. All of the reviews are from the review section, you'd rarely see these people individually mentioned. In fact, if you go to our YouTube channel, you look at success stories. We have actually put 100 success stories on our YouTube channel. And these are unedited 30, 35-minute long interviews. You would rarely see these guys individually mentioned over there. I think a few of you over here just would have probably interacted with them as well. So, and yeah, so I think DJ, let's carry on. Start with how do we use the GMAT?
Yeah. So before just going into that slide, Arshad is going to post a quick Microsoft form link. I want you to open it. It'll take you less than 15 seconds to fill. And we just want to get a better picture of what your answer is before I move into the next slide, because I'm sure I'll get a lot of fun answers and interesting data. So Arshad, can you just do that, please? Okay, let's just wait for him to paste the form link. Don't think the form link is right. Okay, got it. Just click on this link, guys, or just take about 5 to 10 seconds and then fill in this form. And just would love to see the results of this.
I think you should also tell them what does the square form ask.
Yeah. So the form basically asks you what does it take to ace the GMAT? Is the GMAT about accuracy, or is the GMAT about ability? You can just choose either one of them, and if you can't open the form, you can just probably paste or type in your comments as well. That would really help. I'm just going to wait for a bit, and then we're going to go into telling you how to ace the GMAT. Got it. So we got a bunch of responses from all of you, and it's very interesting answers, right? And this is why I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about this. Acing the GMAT, by the way, and this is a common misconception, right? A lot of you think it's about accuracy, but it's not. It's about ability. And from my experience, and this is from working with a lot of people, it's all about ability when it comes to really doing well on the GMAT. So everything that you can see, the skipping strategy, a timing strategy, which questions to attempt, which topics are harder, will all become secondary, right? And that's something that you need to understand, that you will only ace the GMAT if you have the ability to do so. So what is this ability term that we're using here? Right? Let me just give you some context into that. 1 second. Yeah. Now, a lot of you have don't know the difference between an accuracy and an ability, right? Now, the difference between accuracy and ability is quite simple. Ability is relative. It's a relative term, and it measures your strengths across a varied spectrum, right? Whereas accuracy is a simple percentage, irrespective of the difficulty level of the question. So it's not relative, right? And the GMAT is a computer adaptive test, as we all know, and everything that you see on the GMAT would be relative. So we are testing ability and not accuracy, right? So now this graph, and I'm just going to take you through this graph just to make you or help you understand how at the same accuracy you can have completely different abilities, right? So if you notice the blue graph, the blue pointed graph, you can clearly see here that the student has gotten the harder questions wrong, and they've been able to get harder questions right as well. So their ability, when related to a person who's gotten easier questions wrong, and then finally has finally gone on to the average difficulty level, will be way higher, right? And this is exactly what a computer adaptive test like the GMAT is all about. It's about the ability to answer the really hard questions right, and even the questions right in the beginning, right? So moving on to the next slide, this is again going to really solidify the hypothesis I'm making. If you notice this, and the first thing that you would notice is this is a 41 question test. So this is the old GMAT, and the point is the same. The point is the same, that if you look at both of these grids, there's something that you should notice. So tell me something. Would you relate to the first grid or the second grid? And you can probably post this in the comment section. and then tell me that is the first grade something that you would have felt about, or is the second grade something that you would have related to more? Let's just wait for a little while till you write your comments. Let's get one or two comments in. Yeah, still cannot see any. Never
So,
mind. So I'll just go. No.
yeah. So, guys, when you look at these two uh, uh, two attempts, what you see is, first of all, the scores are very different. The guy on the left over here has a score of V43, which is 97th percentile. The guy on the right is 65th percentile. But what you see over here, first of all, you see 41 questions, as DJ mentioned, and in these 41 questions, you see that if you look at question numbers 11 to 41, their accuracies are identical. Both of them have done 9 mistakes over here, and then between 11 and 41. The difference is student 2, or the second guy, has made 2 mistakes in the first 2 questions. But if you purely look at accuracy, you'd say 9 mistakes versus 11 mistakes, and that leads to a rank difference of about 64,000. Okay, so when you look at 97 percentile, about 200,000 people take the GMAT. So this gives this guy 6,000 rank, whereas when you look at the second guy over here, what you see is that his rank is 70,000, and you'd really say, man, one inference that you could draw from this is that a delta of 2 mistakes, and it puts me in really bad light. Being among the top 6,000 students is really great. Being amongst the top 70,000 students, not so great, especially if you're aiming for a top school. But that's not the entire picture. The GMAT, frankly, doesn't care about either one of these. It doesn't care about accuracy to the same degree. What the GMAT looks at these people, and DJ, if you want to go to the next slide over here, is through a lens of ability. So when you go, how many of you over here know about ESR, or Enhanced Score Report? So if you look at their ESRs, it's not unfair at all. Actually, it's very, very fair. And again, I understand that many of you think that it's unfair, but a lot of you who think that this is unfair, tell me one thing, if you go back to the previous slide. How many 41 question tests are there where you can make 9 mistakes and still be among the top 3 percentile of students? How many such tests do you find? You almost answering a quarter of the questions incorrectly. Still, you are among the top 3 percentile of students, Mansi. So if you go forward, what the GMAT looks at, it doesn't care about those accuracies. What it cares about are these ability scores. Okay, and internally within the test itself, it's measuring these 3 ability scores. So when you look at these 2 students through that lens of ability, do they look different? Do these guys look different when you look at them through the lens of ability? On one hand, the V43 guy has a 95th percentile ability in SC. V32 guy has an 81st percentile ability in SC. Similarly, in critical reasoning, the V43 guy has a 95th percentile ability as well. And DJ, if you want to just circle that using annotations, using the mouse over there, and the other guy in critical reasoning, please, using has a 66th percentile ability over there. And so that's something which is really, really important to know. It's a huge difference. So that's what it cares about. So the V43 score is not the cause. It's an outcome, and the causes are these abilities. DJ, I think I'll take on the next couple of slides because they require you to write over there, and then so if you can just stop sharing your screen,
Got it.
I can share my screen over there, and that way I have a pen and I can write on this over here. Let me just share screen. All right. So let me just hide this over here. So when you look at these ability scores, and when you look at these ability scores over here, they are very, very different. And and so then the question that happens is, what abilities does the GMAT measure? Right? And so when you look at the entire algorithm of that's there, the GMAT actually measures 5 different abilities. You have 3 on the verbal side of the GMAT and 2 on the quant side. So a lot of us focus on this score out of 800. That score out of 800 is actually just an outcome. The causes are these 5 abilities. And so when you're planning for that score of 720, 730, 740, 760, you should aim for these should have definitive aims for these ability scores. And when we talk about building that study plan, it's about defining these abilities that you would aim for, that are optimal for you given your strengths and given your weaknesses over here. Okay, so how does scoring work? So on the GMAT, you have 5 independent engines that actually calculate those 5 abilities, and these 5 abilities are calculated independently. Someone was asking, how do you recover from those mistakes? And a lot of people have this myth where they say, hey, if you make a mistake on the first 10 questions, or you can't recover. No, that's not the case. The reason why most people don't recover is because if you make a mistake on a medium question, most likely you are not someone with a high ability. That's why you made a mistake on a medium question. So that's why it doesn't happen. It's not that the test doesn't allow you to recover. The test absolutely allows you to recover. Okay. So you have these 5 independent engines. What it means is that how you do in SC has no impact on the difficulty level of questions that be served to you in CR. How you do in CR has very little impact on the difficulty level of questions that are served on RC. These ability engines get their own scores, and these scores are combined to get you that verbal score out of 60. Similarly, on quant side, you have arithmetic and algebra geometry. Those scores are combined to get you that quant score out of 60, and then these ones are combined then to get you that score out of 800. Okay. So when we truly say that GMAT's a test of ability, what we are really saying is build those abilities, and that score out of 800 will be an automatic outcome. Okay. So ask yourself, when you're going towards those ability scores, what ability are you aiming for in SC, CR, and RC when you aim for a certain score out of 800 on the GMAT? Okay. Here's another data point over here. I mean, so people were talking about you can't recover from mistakes. Here's a guy who went from V17 to V40. And this is not just an isolated case. There are many such cases over here. What you see over here is that, and then what you see is, first of all, this V40 score is an outcome of these abilities. You have ability scores in CR, RC, and SC. And because he got these ability scores, he was able to get to that V40 score. Okay. He made mistakes. Someone really said it's about timing. You've got to really finish strong. The same guy, and you can download his ESR from here. The same guy actually, did well in the first 2 blocks, but look at how many mistakes he made over here. Look at how many mistakes he made in these 2 blocks. Despite that, he was able to get to a 91st percentile on GMAT verbal over here. Okay, DJ is back. Okay, so this was, we talked about GMAT being a test of abilities. DJ, I think this is a good time for you to take over and talk about how, as you fix your abilities, your GMAT score improves.
Oh, thank you, Rajat. I'm glad to be back. I'm back, guys. Just let me share my screen with you. Yeah, I hope this is visible. All right, so we're going to, I hope you can see my screen.
No, you have to start sharing. You're not sharing your screen there.
I think it should be visible now. You just have to change the mode, I think, to the speaker and presentation.
No, now it's visible.
Yeah. Now it's visible. Right. So, yeah, I want to talk about these two guys whose names sound a little, like Jim Lee and Kim Wee, and then their different journeys, right? So,
They're not
so one is
related,
more.
by the way.
They're not related.
They're
Yes,
not
they're not
brother and
related.
sister.
Yeah. So their journeys from 700 to 770 and 610 to 760, and this is basically going to be around everything that Raja discussed, right? All about building their abilities. So let's move on to the next slide and see their ESRs. Right. Now I want you to notice a few key things here in Jim's ESR. Now this is the first ESR is the ESR where he scored a 700 and a V34. If you look at critical reasoning, look at his ability score, the ability score that we've been talking about. It's just 39th percentile. And then with sentence correction, same problem. It's just 63rd percentile. Right. So now from 34 to 42, a lot of things have changed. But what is the biggest thing that has changed? His ability. I mean, and that's clearly visible over here. So if you look at critical reasoning over here, it's moved from 39th to 94th. It's almost an inverse of the digits, right? And then pretty much changed the entire course of his test. And if you look at sentence correction as well, he's again made a massive jump there. And then as a result of which, he scored a V42. And then he's jumping from 71st percentile, which is a V34 score, to a 96th percentile by just improving his ability score. Now, this is a clear cut case where you can see that it is the ability score that matters, right? I mean, it mattered for Jim. Now let's look at Kim. With Kim, his first score was the 610, and where he scored a V37. And now, if you look at the one thing that kind of set him apart was his reading comprehension. And then, comparatively to critical reasoning and sentence correction, it's quite down, right? I mean, it's not that high as it should be. Now, sometime later, he scored a V44. What changed again? And then this is again something I want to point out to you very clearly. Reading comprehension, just singly, reading comprehension pulled his entire score by 7 points. So can you imagine if I just fix that one ability that I'm lacking in, I can improve my verbal score by 7 points and actually score 98th percentile. By the way, scoring really well on verbal on the GMAT really gets you very, very high scores as well. And then there's proof for that too, right? So you want to be like Jim and you want to be like Kim. Both of them, again, are not related. Now, how can you identify your current abilities? And I'm going to take you back to the very first few things that I said. Uh, it's all about creating the right study plan. Can you create a right study plan, guys, without without knowing your current abilities? Like, tell me, like, is it possible to create a plan without knowing your current abilities? Just wait for you guys to respond, and then I will move on to the next slide. So, perfect. I mean, and
I think the question to ask is how many of you know your current abilities?
yeah,
That's also, I think, a very
that's
important
also an
question to
important
ask.
question. Got it. So, I mean, clearly, if you don't know your abilities, you don't know where to go. It's like Google Maps. If you want to go to a certain spot, you need to know where you're going from and where your end destination is, right? So clearly, this is what kind of sets you apart. Now, there's two ways to identify your abilities. One way is obviously going to the GMAT, ordering your ASR, and getting these very, very clear subsectional ability scores, right? And then this will only cost you a crisp $280, just $280. But there's another test there in the market where it gives you the same thing, and it's probably even better. But guess what, guys? This is absolutely free of cost. So what am I talking about? It's a Sigma X mock, right? So Archit is going to share with you a link of our Sigma X mock trial so that you go there, take the diagnostic. Please take the diagnostic to see where your ability scores are so that you can create the right study plan. First step is scoring 720 plus. Remember that. It's all about knowing your abilities. And by the way, like I said, free of cost. It's a crisp $0 free of cost. Please go ahead, take the diagnostic, and write to us. Moving on to the next line. This kind of really solidifies my case that I'm trying to make about the ESR and the sigma X mark. So let's look at Antariksha's case. Now, this is clearly his ESR where he scored a V31, and I want to just kind of point out to his sentence correction scores, his CR scores. Try to remember these numbers because you're going to see them again, right? So V31, CR is 88th percentile, RC is 84th, and SC is 24th. Now, let's look at the same person who gave a sigma X mark a week before giving this test. Guys, a week before giving this test, he gave the sigma X mark. Do you remember his sentence correction scores? So they were 24th. So it was very a low percentile, 24. So again, this is something that his ability score clearly pointed out, right? Now let's look at CR. It says 88th. You can say 84th here. Now look at the accuracy here. Look at the prediction and that level of predictiveness of the sigma X mark. I mean, if I had to take this mark, I would be more than happy to do so, right? And look at reading comprehension methods, almost alike. Now, if someone were to tell you that it's important for you to understand your target abilities and it's important to understand your starting scores and starting abilities, what mark will you take? I think it's a no-brainer now, right? It's extremely important. Go there. Please take a sigma X mark. I'm telling you, they're the best, right? Moving on to the next slide.
Just one other thing. So some of you were also asking to really say, hey, these guys seem to have, so Jim and Kim had the not so twin guys had high starting scores. So if you want to really see people who've had low quant, low verbal scores, you can really visit this over here, and you can see how people have gone from like a Q35 to a Q50, V24 to a V41, and so on and so forth over there. And yeah, so what important here is to make sure that you understand where you are. That way you define the kind of effort that you need over there. And we have experts who help you do that. We actually primarily they keep reserve this time, but for our students, but we do reserve some time for other folks as well, and especially because GMAT Club has been super generous to allow us to host a session. So if you want to see how to build a study plan, you can go on this link and reserve a couple of slots or so. Okay, DJ, actually carry on, please.
Thank you, Rajat. Thank you. So just moving on to the next case study again to solidify my case, and I'm not really trying to market anything. I want you to see the benefit and the power of this test, right? Nothing else. So Utkarsh, he started off in December and he got a 650. Now this is his starting score, and then he finally this is his scores 1 week before the exam again, and he scored a 760, right? And this is right before his exam. Now, this was his sigma X mark split before his exam. He got a Q50 and a V43. Now, fair enough, this is an excellent score. You would be hoping to score well on the exam. And he clearly has improved 100 points in 45 days. Now, I want you to pay attention to the quant score and verbal score. Right? Q50, V43. Okay, so now obviously, Utkarsh is successful. He's got in a 750, but look at his scores. Q50, absolutely spot on, right? And the verb scores, again, very spot on. Like the difference between a V41 and a 43 is barely a question or two here and there, right? So you need to understand the power of data and the power of that sigma X mark that he took that gave him the belief that, yes, I can score a 750 plus on the GMAT. Now, the next question that you need to beg and ask yourself is, how do I determine where I want to go? So I know where I am now. I've taken the mark. That job is done. Tick that box. How do I know what my target abilities are? Right. So I'm going to take you back to the slide. Right. And this is again very important. You'll only know what your target abilities are if you're creating the right study plan. Again, right study plan, and that's right here. And how do you create it? Where do you create it? It's the personalized study plan. This is precisely the link that Rajat shared, and I think Arshit will share with you as well, so that you can go and create this personalized study plan for yourself. We've been raving about it this entire time, that a personalized or a study plan is the first and most important thing to doing or getting a score. Please go ahead and create a personalized study plan. But here's what is interesting. You might wonder that creating a study plan is a tedious task. I'll have to get down to it. I have to put in like a million numbers. Guess what? You really wouldn't. Give a Sigma X mark, you get your numbers from there, you plug it in, and voila, like in 3 or 4 minutes, you have a personalized study plan. I mean, you can't really ask for more. Again, we're trying to optimize all of the time that you're spending for preparation on the GMAT, right? And then Asha is going to share a poll link here so that I can take a small drinks break as well. So the question here is, what does a study plan do? And this is a multiple choice question, so you guys can mark off different options so that we get to know your responses.
Let me actually get the link. I'm gonna just check the link over here. Over here,
Correct.
yes, I have the link. The link, it's the right link. Let's put it over here. If you can put those, put your responses here, and DJ, once you see the responses, if you can share the results, that'd be great too.
Yeah, let me just ask Archit for that link.
All right. So what does a study plan do? And you guys can choose the options there. You can also put your responses here. Um,
I'm just sharing the responses so we can get more responses, I think. We've gotten one responses yet.
okay. What does a study plan do? I think let's collect the responses in chat over here.
Yeah, I think that's a better.
What's the role of a study plan according to you guys?
I mean, other than scoring well, which is what I've been talking about.
What's the role of a study plan? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to break the ice. I'm going to just tell you this is the answer. This is the easy way out. Okay, so here is what the study plan will do, and these are questions that all of you have, right? That okay, how do I reach my target score? How much time do I need? How much time do I need for my mocks? How much time do I need to prepare for SCCR and XYZ, right? And then probably the most important question we all ask ourselves is, um, where do I put in this time? Because we all want to put in time in the right places, which is absolutely fair. All right. Now, here is a very interesting case. Here is Abby and Chase, again, unrelated, guys. Um, who do you relate more to? Do you relate more to Abby or do you relate more to Chase? Like, are you more of a quant heavy person or are you okay on both and slightly less on the quant side? Just respond in the comment section so that we can have some fun with this.
So just to relatively, both Abby and Chase are at a score of 600. And you can really see Abby's more balanced score. She has a Q42, V31. Chase has a Q49 and a V23. So who's more like Chase? Who's more like Abby over here? Okay, Mansi is more like Abby. What about Shweta? What about Ravi? What about Anand? Who do you associate more with, Abby or Chase? Nathadat is more like Chase. Let's get a few more Abby or Chases. We have one Abby, one Chase. Nashita is more like Abby. Okay.
This is like the American elections over here. I mean, this is really, really
Oh,
interesting race.
we've in elections we've had record polling this time. Here we need more participation. All right,
Yeah, we do.
we have Chase, and we have actually we have four Abbeys. So Abby is winning right
Yeah,
now. We have more Abbeys
got it.
than Chase. Okay,
Fine, Abby wins.
Abby wins unless we get another poll. Uh, but the thing over here is you see Abby and Chase. Abby is a Q42 and a V31, and Chase has a Q49 V23. And you say, okay, this is a good starting point for either one. And thank you for that comment, Ravi. What you have to really then ask ourselves is, okay, is this enough to get to build my study plan? And which is where you get to the next level of detail, which is DJ.
Yeah. I was actually just looking at the comment, chase my dreams again. Sorry. Okay. Now, yeah, I mean, this is something that you need to ask yourself again, right? Obviously, do they need to achieve the same quant and verbal scores to achieve that 740? Again, the answer will to that will be a no, right? If you introspect a little. The second question is, again, where do I spend my time? Do I spend it? Do I spend 4 hours on verbal, one on quant, or the other way around? And how does it work for both Abby and Chase? And finally, do they study the same thing? I mean, again, a very, very qualitative question, but important, right? Because if Abby is weaker in quant, she may have to study from multiple resources. That's something that's very important. So here is what will simplify everything. Like I said, if you take a Sigma X mock, you're going to come up with these clear ability scores. So if I know my ability scores, creating that right study plan is just a step away.
Okay,
And
let's
then
go
this
back.
is what.
Hold on. Go back. Go back. So let's go back to a couple of slides over there, please. Yeah. So we're talking about Abby and Chase. So go to the next slide. So I think let's get some responses to this. Do you think their quant and verbal scores should be the same to get to a 740? Just very simply. Because both of them are at 600, do you think both of them would need 2 months? Do you think both of them would need 3 months to get to 740? Or do you think that time would be different? Just very simple question. 600, 740, both of them were there. So yes, no. The second thing, do you think Abby and Chase would put an equal effort in studying quant and verbal? And then the third thing which is there is, would they study the same content? Okay, I'm getting this. No, yes. All right, let's get a few more no's and yeses. So if one person says yes, the other one says no, Mansi says no, and Aman says yes. So no, you would not be. These are different individuals over here. Now, if you go to the next slide, would you see with Chase in this case? DJ, go to the next slide, please.
Yep.
What you see with Chase's quant score in arithmetic and algebra, he's at a 42nd percentile. So that score in 42 is a percentile score out of 100, which means out of 100 individuals, sees that his rank is 42nd. Sorry, for Abby, this is Abby. And then on the verbal side, Abby's at a 60th percentile at the bottom. So roundabout it. So 59, 57, 60. That's kind of club it on around that 60th percentile. Chase is a very different individual. He's much better in quant and arithmetic and algebra geometry. He's among the top 30 percentile of individuals. Whereas on the verbal side, he's actually below 50th percentile. It's around that 35th percentile in SCCR and RC. Clearly, it's very obvious that Abby has to do a lot more work in quant, whereas Chase has to do a lot more work in verbal over there. And these insights are important when you want to build a study plan that will help you get to that score. So let's see how we use these insights to get to a study plan. We put in this information in PSP. And what that does is it takes into account how much you want to study every day. So it takes into account, so if you can point it out, weekdays and weekends. So if you probably can't see this, but it says 2 hours on weekdays, 5 hours on weekends, you can customize this. And it can then tell you how long would you need to study sentence correction, how long would you need to study critical reasoning, how now would you need to study reading comprehension. But even before that, it looks at the universe of possibilities of quant and verbal values. So if you go to the next slide, for Abby, what it tells you is that for Abby to get to a 740, you can see that score over there. Abby has to go from a Q42nd percentile in arithmetic and algebra to a 65th percentile in arithmetic and algebra. So you can see over here. And similarly, on the verbal side, she has to go from her almost 60th percentile to that 90th percentile group over here. That's given her starting point. That's the best way for her to get to a 740. This is optimized for her out of about 20 to 25 ways of getting to 740. And then the tool uses a neural network to actually get that for her. For Chase, the recommendations are very different. Or yes. So for Chase, actually, then it tells you how long will it take. So it even tells you how long
Yeah.
will Abby need. So starting from the starting abilities on the left, which is you see to the target abilities, Abby needs to spend about 2 weeks in SC, 2 weeks in CR, 2 weeks in RC, and about 2.5 weeks together in Quant over here. Okay, so this is a study plan that Abby gets, and then it can also provide metrics within it. Chase has a very different journey. Chase is strong in quant, so he wants to maximize his advantage in quant, which is where the plan suggests that Chase scores a Q50, which is 83rd percentile in arithmetic and algebra, and a V41 correspondingly, V40 or 41, which is around that 90th percentile over here. And similarly, it also spits out how much time would Chase need. The tool does all of this for him, and you can really see he doesn't need as much time in quant. He needs a lot more time. He needs about 9 weeks in verbal, 3 weeks each in SCCR and RC over there. So same in starting scores, same target scores, but very, very different study plans, very different focus areas. Okay. Harish has a great question. Harish says, hey, in your study plan, you dedicated amount of time. The plan shows only SC for a few weeks. Yes, you need focus. If you're at 30th percentile in SC, you need that focus. You should not study that other subsection during this time. Okay. But what we also have, once you start with, and that's a great question, by the way, once you start with SC, you go into CR, we also tell you how do you keep revising SC so you don't forget that. Why you guys prefer this? Because when you want to excel in something, you need singular focus. That's just the basic principle of learning, whether you're learning the GMAT, whether you're learning how to run a business. I mean, just if you want to build a business or run a division, don't do it part-time. In the same way, don't study part-time. I mean, most of you are anyhow going to put 2 hours a day. Imagine learning verb ing modifiers in SC on a single day where you have 2 hours and you say, I'm going to learn verb ing modifiers. And then for the remaining hour, I'm going to actually practice number properties in quant. How much of that verb ing modifiers, which by the way, you're learning for the first time, do you think you're going to remember the next day? Not a whole lot. Do you think you'd be able to get to the top 5 percentile of students in SC? Not really.
I just have another thing to add here, Rajat,
Yes.
just to answer Harish's question. Harish, to be as polite as possible about this, it works. So I'm clearly doing something right here, right? I mean, that's something that Rajat is reiterating as well, and I absolutely agree with it because when you're studying two different subjects at the same time, and we've learned from students like you who tried to do this, and they ended up on the other side, right? So we have to learn from others' mistakes and fix those things.
The other piece is the only time you want to do this is if you're studying full time. If you have 8 hours in a day, yes, then you can do 2, probably 3 subsections over here. Okay. Now, just to summarize Abby and Chase over here, Chase, you can really see needs 50% more time to get to a lower score in verbal than Abby. So 1.5 weeks or 9 weeks versus 6 weeks over here. On the other hand, Abby needs twice as much time to get to a lower score in quant than Chase. Okay, so that's just the value of a study plan. I mean, imagine you put in wrong estimates, you go on and really just say, okay, I'm going to go from a V25 or a V27 to a V40 in 6 weeks when you really need 9 weeks. What's going to happen? You're going to start rushing through material. When you start rushing through material, you're not going to focus on learning. And when you don't focus on learning, you don't end up in the top 10 percentile of students or the top 3 or the top 1 percentile of students. So having those right estimates, that's very important over here. Okay, how close are GMAT prep tests to real GMAT? They are reasonably close if you have not solved those questions. And that I want to just make sure that we do that. On verbal, they're pretty close. On quant, I would say they're reasonably close, but only if you've not solved those questions. A lot of times, what happens is that people uh, have solved questions on the web, and as they solve questions on the web, they end up solving 2 or 3 questions from GMAT prep a priori, and when they take a GMAT prep mock test, they get a much higher score, and they take the actual GMAT, they end up failing, and then they start blaming the tests. It's not the test that you should blame; it's the fact that you already know that. But yeah, they're fairly close.
Got it. So just to sum up what Rajat said in this entire section, right? It's about where you spend your time, which is why I'm going to take you back again and say, please, 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 create the right study plan for yourself and follow it. I think just following up and committing to a study plan is as important as creating it, right? And that's something that we reiterate day in and day out to students. And this is exactly why I've taken you back to this slide here. So the question is, how is it that you build ability? And then here is the fun thing. We will teach you how to build ability. And there's a very, very specific, and this is the proper method. This is what I was talking about, that what is the right way to study to score that 720. And we're doing, and then before share that link with you, I just want to take you through this entire process because, again, I want to equip you and empower you to score well. What is the 25th percentile mean? It means that you need to learn right from the grassroots level. So grassroots level is all about concepts, right? When you move up slightly above 25th and go to 50th, that's when you start learning to apply everything that you learn. So concepts are fine to a point, but you need to learn to join the link, join the dots, right? Uh, and now the 50th percentile to the 90th percentile is a very tricky journey for a lot of students, right? And this is where the stages of learning and the entire modular approach comes in, where we teach you how to build ability. And it's absolutely free, and you guys should definitely attend this session because it's helped a bunch of students. Is this phase of your learning where you master your application and really refine everything, right? And then once you're there at the 90th percentile, it's all about making sure that you can do it over and over again, right? So this is exactly what we're going to be telling you guys, that it's all about conducting the right activity at the right time. And the reason why the intensity varies for all of these stages is because, again, it's all about singular focus. If you have to master application, it requires more focus than probably learning a concept, right? And that's very, very important to understand. So we'll be sharing this PDF with you, which has the join link too. But go ahead, click on this link, please. Go ahead and attend the session tomorrow. You would not be disappointed. Now, I'm going to take you back to the last thing, that the third commandment, per se, that we talked about to really becoming successful or scoring 720 plus. It's feedback, and the iterative process. And during this entire process, we're going to mostly talk about data, right? And the reason we strongly suggest data here is you can't falter when it comes to numbers and they're right in front of you, right? You can't fault them. And through numbers, we're going to figure out how we can find a specific weakness, the right timing strategy, and last but not the least, guys, probably the most secret weapon in the arsenal of every 720 plus scorer is the revision strategy. Right? Remember the revision strategy. So I'm going to take you back to this slide. We are here finally. We are the third commandment, and now this is what really amplifies the effect of this chance of success. Remember feedback and data. Right? Before you get into really understanding or really improving, it's important to figure out, all right, these are my weaknesses. How do I rectify them? So before I rectify a weakness, I obviously need to identify it, right? How do you identify weakness? And then that's something that is very important. So I want you to look at the key pieces of data over here. Now, if you're taking about 2 minutes 7 seconds for a subject verb question, which is frankly, it's about 37 to 40 seconds more than you should be taking on a hard level question. It shows me that there's certain gaps between the linkages of your concepts to really applying them, because your brain is not processing things that fast, which is why you're taking that time. Now, the prerequisite here, and mind you, this is very important, is that you get the question correct. We're talking first about the accuracy here, get the question right, and then we're talking about the application gap, which comes with time. Right now, I've seen everything that all right. This is what I'm weak at. But I want to dig in a little deeper, and it's very important to dig in a little deeper because you won't understand things otherwise. Now look at this. Look at this. Data table over here. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it because some of you may not be able to see it. Now, if you look at geometry, it's 68 percentile, 68% overall accuracy. What does this mean? That you're doing really well on some topics and you're doing badly on some, or it can mean that you're on an average doing decently well on all of them. But you need to dig a little deeper. You always need to dig a little deeper when it comes to data. So let's have a look at an amplified view of the student's account. So I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but clearly you can see.
I think let's just change the view to just a slide view.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Yes. Well, even
So,
then,
yeah, it's still a little small. So I'm going to spell it out for you. Coordinate geometry, you can clearly see that the accuracy here is really, really low when it comes to the hard and the really hard questions. So this is a point that you're messing up on. So how do you fix this? Right? When you can see that your accuracy is so low. Go back, revise your concept files, your application files, and practice files. Go back and revise those concepts. Go back and revise those linkages that taught you how to really solve a coordinate geometry question. This is the fix. Right? Now, if you go down and you look at polygons and you look at triangles as well, you're not doing really well here too. The accuracy is down here as well. So what do you do? But the accuracy is not as bad as it's for coordinate geometry. Right? So what does the student do? All that you need to do is go back and revise your application and practice files that you've done or questions that you've done, application and practice wise. But when you go back, figure out where you went wrong, draw those linkages, right? And that's extremely crucial and important.
so
I
I
think,
think right now they can see this. So what you see over here is, again, let's start with this. So we are drilling down. So we had this overall accuracy of 68% in geometry over here, and again, you want to say, okay, I want to get to that. Maybe you are at a Q48 or a Q47. You want to get to that Q50 score, and here you see is okay. When I'm looking at this accuracy numbers, you see easy, medium, hard, and very hard, and you say, okay, easy, I'm pretty okay. Medium, maybe I'm making some mistakes, but not a whole lot. But this is where I start making mistakes. So again, is there a specific weakness? So in geometry, what you really have is you have various topics. You have circles, you have triangles, you have polygons, you have coordinate geometry, you have 3D, and so on and so forth. So you can actually drill down into the various accuracy levels. And we've only shown areas where this guy needs help. Remember, his overall accuracy was 68%. So the first thing you really see is, hey, coordinate geometry, accuracy bad. Let's just take a black pen. So this means he needs help. But then where does this guy need help? And over here, what you see is, even though this is just about 6 questions in this case, but he definitely needs help at the conceptual level. Why? Because he's making mistakes in medium level questions. On hard questions, similarly, more mistakes over here. And again, I'm going to discard this because it's just one question here. So when you look at coordinate geometry, this guy, I would ask this guy to go back, revise all the application files, all the practice files, do some concept files over there. But that's kind of what he needs to do within the course. Okay, and then let's look at polygons. This is polygons, accuracy higher. It's not the same 48%, and that higher accuracy is something you can see translate very easily into where this guy is making mistakes, and where this guy is making mistakes is in hard questions. I mean, medium rarely good, easy rarely good, but it's when questions become hard. So primarily the issues are difficult applications. So don't worry about concept files. Only worry about what we call as level 2 application files and practice files. You do that, this is going to come up. Your geometry ability is going to go up, and essentially you would go from that Q47 to Q48, Q49. over there. So this is what we call as, you kind of do that round tripping, a 2-day round tripping, and you really see that impact on your overall score in this case. And again, this is kind of the how it looks, the various blocks in there, and you can really see the level of details that you have. Again, you open this, you'd see many activities in there. Okay, so now you've seen this file, you want to verify this. So how do you go about verifying this? You can actually create a custom quiz within Scholaranium. You say, I'm probably want to not put in easy questions, but I want to put in medium and hard questions over here, because that's where you want to track your improvement. um, I'm going to take questions in coordinate geometry, polygons, maybe some triangles, because that was my weakness as well. I can select the number of questions over here. I can select maybe 15 questions over here. Remember, all of them are medium and hard. And then I'm going to create a quiz, look at the results. If my accuracy improves, I know I'm confirmed that I've improved. So you don't have to take a mock test to do this. I can really just do it within the platform. And if it doesn't improve, maybe it improves in coordinate geometry, but over here, I'm not so certain. Again, go back, take another quiz, or look at the solution and see where are you making mistakes. And you can do this again and again, because you have thousands of questions here, till you actually improve, but only once you have the right foundation over there. So with that, let's get to the timing strategy piece. DJ, you want to just go? I'm going to just share my screen that way itself.
Yeah, you just have to like change the mode to the presenter and the presentee mode. I'll start sharing them.
No, I can share my screen, so I can forward it.
Good. I'll go with this.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, this is the second piece of the iterative and the feedback process is the timing strategy, and this is probably again one of the most important pieces of information that you'll get from this entire webinar. Right. Um, here is what I'm going to go ahead and tell you. This is a very interesting slide. Rajat, I don't think I'm sharing my screen.
Yes.
Can
Yeah. So here is the
you
slide.
Perfect. So now, if you look at this, I mean, I don't think you'll be able to view this, but here is the story. Let me tell you the story because I've looked at this mail. Now, this student was scoring really well on experts global mocks. He was doing really well in Veritas prep mocks. But he's doing well. He's in around the 680 to the 700 range, and he goes and gives his GMAT. What happens? He gets a 570. Now, more than just a psychological hit, right? Of such a massive score drop from your marks, it's important to just take a step back, take a day or two, and figure out, all right, this has happened. There must be a reason for it, right? Where is the gap? What happened there? And then you will see what happened there in the next slide. Um, so yeah, we have to move on to the next slide where you can see is a yes or no. So I don't think you'll be able to see the data here, but here's if you can just zoom in, Rajat, will probably really help.
Okay. Let me
Just on the
just
time increase.
yes, I will be happy to. Yes.
Perfect. So if you notice here, guys, and this is exactly what happened, right? So in all of those mocks, there's something that he was missing out on. He was missing out on the amount of time that he was spending on first correct questions, the questions that he got correct, which is the blue pie chart, right? And then the second bit is the amount of time that he was spending on incorrect questions as well. I mean, if you look at the amount of time he spent on that as well, is a clear indicator that he is going to be crunched for time towards the end. So if you look at the first two blocks, and this is the average timing data, he spent over 5 minutes extra on the first two blocks itself. So by the third block, you're freaking out. You don't know what to do. When you freak out, your performance drops, and it drops drastically towards the end, especially when you don't have time. If you get a string or a slew of questions wrong towards the end because you have lesser time, your score drops drastically, right? And that is what happened with the student here. I mean, this is something that would have not been able to, he wouldn't have been able to see this without the ESR. And this is why his score dropped 100 points from the marks he was taking. It's not the fault of the marks, but no one gave him that feedback. Remember the word feedback again. No one gave him that feedback that, listen, hang on, these scores are inflated because you're taking way too long, right? So let's just move on to the next slide where I can just talk about the timing, please. All right. So in this lovely little screenshot in this dashboard. Now this is a screenshot of the new Scholaranium dashboard, guys. It's probably one of the best things that I've seen in a while. In this dashboard, you're able to see two things. One, you're able to see your accuracy, which you've always been able to see. But now, with this is courtesy Archit, by the way, you can see the average timing as well, right? And not just for your entire historical data, because that's not what you want. You want to see the improvement, the delta from the last few questions you did to the current few questions, right? And then this is where you can just click on the last 30 attempts. Now, if you look at this, and this is something that gives you tangible feedback, if you see the red bars in SCCR and RC, it tells you two things. It firstly tells you you're taking too long on questions that you're getting correct. So what does that mean? We discussed this before. There's application gaps, and it's going to create a time crunch before or when you go into a mock. So I don't even have to tell you before you go to a mock that you will face a time crunch. That's the beauty of
In
it.
fact, this data is for the same student from his
Yeah.
Scholaranium, where he was so in Scholaranium even before he took a mock test. This data existed. It's just that the student didn't take feedback. So when he wrote to us, we actually went and looked at this data, and really just said, hey, yes, is what is the SR is saying is not something that just happened on the test. This has been a persistent problem. The data did exist. It's just that, you chose to ignore the data because, guys, we want to see good scores. And sometimes when a mock test does give us good scores, we just choose to ignore everything else. And that's something that you want to make sure that you don't do. I mean, this is really important for you to get that to take this data into account and really say, hey, decide whether are you ready for the test. Okay,
Right.
so with this, you see, then the question that you have to ask yourself is, what's this optimal time for each subsection? And here is the optimal time that you have for each subsection. You may be a bit less in SE, you may take a bit more in CR, but or on quant, you may be 5 seconds here or there. But if you're taking way longer than this, then you won't have optimal performance on the actual test.
Right. So there's another piece of information here. What if you take much lesser time than this? I mean, you would imagine that, oh my God, that's great. That's not great, guys. You need to spend the right amount of time on any question that you do, right? And that's key to really doing well on the GMAT. Because if you're taking such low time on that question, you're not really processing all those pieces and bits of information, right? And that's something that you need to understand. So we can just move on to the next slide now. Right. So this is a really interesting slide, and this is going to give you a very good picture of what timing woes are. So timing woes are two kinds. You can either have a high average correct time, which is what you saw, but we also share data for high average incorrect time. So the first bit is something that we've been talking about for a while now, and we've also shown you how to verify and fix. So what does this mean? What does high average correct time mean? It means that when you're actually taking when you're doing a question and you're getting it right, you're taking way too long to process that information, or you're taking way too long to really link the application to the concept. So what kind of gaps can you have? It's quite simple, right? You have application gaps or you have process gaps. And again, this is something that's very easily fixable. But alas, what happens when you have a high average incorrect time? What does it say about you as an individual? It's just simply a bad test taking habit, because if you look at it, it's the law of diminishing returns. So here's an interesting tidbit for you. As you cross the optimal timing barrier matrix that we just showed you, the probability of you getting a question right decreases exponentially, right? So if you've not been able to solve a question in 2 minutes, it's very unlikely that you'll solve it in 3.5, 4 minutes, 4.5, 5 minutes. You should have left it long way. I mean, a long way back, right? So what do you need to practice? You need to practice letting go. And then that's exactly what you see in the next animation, right? Now we get this question a lot, and we get this question for every single subsection out there, and this is frankly probably the most asked FAQ if you ask me. How do I reduce the time I'm taking? I mean, there's a multiple there are multiple ways of doing this, but if you've gotten to this point, guys, where you have to reduce the time you're taking, it shows that you've done a few things incorrectly before as well, right? So you need to go back and fix those things, which is why it takes time. So if you're taking longer now, it's a resultant of everything that you've not done correctly before, right? Or it can also be a resultant of the genuine application process gaps that you have. Going to the next slide. Yeah. So here is a nice decision matrix for you. And this is something I want to ask you, right? The first thing that you ask yourself when you see a question is, and you can tell me whether this is the right approach or not, with simple say right or wrong. That's it. That's all that I'm asking. So did you know the concept of approach? If I didn't, if it's a no, I went on and I solved more questions. I mean, that's all. That's what we've been taught to do, right from high school education. And then after I've solved more questions, I only check the explanations for the incorrect questions, not the ones that I actually got correct. Right? Do you think this is the right approach? I mean, I would really love to know this because this is something that's been taught to us from childhood, right? And it may or may not be right. Let's see the responses.
Okay, so the thing over here is when you are solving more questions, a lot of people think solving more questions is going to help fix my timing issues, and that usually doesn't happen. Solving more people doesn't help you as the GMAT. You've got to understand the causality behind why do you take longer on a question. Now, when you take longer on a question, what are the things that you do? You do a lot of back and forth between the options and the question, right? You take a lot longer. You do a lot of back and forth. When you do that back and forth, this means that there is something in that question that stumped you. You need to identify that. So the right way to fix your timing issue is, first of all, ask yourself, did I approach this properly? In step one, if I were to apply the meaning based approach, did I understand the intended meaning? If I were to apply pre-thinking, if it's a CR question, did I understand the conclusion? And so on and so forth. Then the question that you have to ask is, okay, if I did the right step, did I do it correctly? And which is where you review the application and you really say, okay, did I stumble upon a word in the conclusion that I actually did not infer correctly, which is why I had to do that back and forth, which is why the correct answer choice wasn't very obvious to me. That piece is something that you want to put in your error log. When you put that in your error log, that's when you don't repeat that mistake. It's when you don't repeat that mistake is when you fix your timing. Okay. So when you look at this, even within the realm of a single question, that approach is very analytical. It's super data driven. Why? Because you're really saying, why did I take longer? Why? Because I mean, imagine this, right? You've been solving CR questions. Usually, when you solve CR questions, you take about 1 minute and 40. On this particular question, you took 3 minutes. Why is it? Which step did you falter in? If you're not being analytical about it, then you're not going to be able to avoid spending 3 minutes on a similar question when this happens again. On the other hand, if you're being analytical about it, then you next time you get a similar construct, you would identify, okay, this is what this construct means. This is where if for example the author says justly before something, so he's justifying this, and I'm gonna, next time I read justly, I'm gonna visualize this in my mind. Okay. And that's really important, having the right approach to this. If you took longer, spend 15 minutes. If people who spend 15 minutes on that question, don't take longer again. On the other hand, if you go in this bracket, you spend 5 minutes and then you solve 20 more questions, you actually don't solve the problem. You still end up taking longer next time you see a similar construct. Any specific process to make an error log, Harish? I just told you. You look at where you faltered, why you faltered. Come to one of our subject matter sessions. Come to the session tomorrow, and you will see how we do that error log and sentence correction. We also have an NSC session next week over here. So let me actually highlight the GMAT strategy session link, and you can. Let's see if I can find it, but I'll give it to you towards the end of the session over here to see how do you build that error log or how do you do a strategic review. Okay, one of the most important things over here, and I think DJ, this is yours. You do this with students day in and day out.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Rajat. I was actually just sitting a few days back, and a lot of people again asked me that you talk about revision. What is revision? What am I supposed to do in it, and how do I do it? Like, let's just be very, very clear on the takeaways when you say revise something. Right? It's a very, very generic term. So I said, okay, fine. Here is what you need to do, and this is a very, very structured plan because not only has it worked for me, it's worked for a bunch of students I work with as well. And that's why I kind of replicated this as a template, right? The very first thing that you need to do is revise your notes. Now, yes, now revising your notes. How do you revise those notes is also very important. A lot of people have digital notes. So people who have digital notes, you can always go to the section that you want to look at and look at it again. For people who have written notes, go back, revise the concept, do a question, solidify that in your mind. That's what revising notes is. It's not just reading the rule or solving a question. That's not revision, right? While you're doing this, you visualize everything that you've learned, the rules and the methods and all that stuff. And then you go to the bookmark questions because bookmark questions are the questions that you think were interesting, were difficult, something that you couldn't do before, right? And do them again. And that's how you kind of build a link between revision and evaluation, right? Now moving on to the next step. Go back and solve those incorrect questions. Now, you'll be able to solve an incorrect question correctly if you've done the first three steps right. If you kind of miss out anything in between, do not expect to see a result. And you know what? The beauty of
DJ,
a lot
I
of
think
students.
your audio is cutting out. So let me just take this over.
Okay.
So yeah, in terms of this incorrect question, it's really important. Questions where you make mistakes are questions where you stumbled on something. So which is where in Scholarinium we give you the option to review your incorrect questions. You can actually build questions just with your incorrect questions, and you can really choose what kind of incorrect questions over there, and those frankly are in a way in many instances similar to bookmarking those questions. And then everyone has certain concepts that they don't feel comfortable about. You know it, and each of you may have a different set of concepts. So revising those concepts, if you're an EGMAT student looking at the post-assessment quizzes or just the concept files over there, that's really important. So this is what we call as revision. Again, you can see it's analytical, it's tangible. It's not just opening a book that you're doing this. It's basically starting with just the core notes that you have taken, stuff that you know, but just to really get you warmed up, then revising those bookmark questions, then those incorrect questions, and then your weak concepts. And as you do this, for someone who has, okay, I have a 7:30, and what should I do in the last 1 week? This is what you should be doing in that last 1 week over here. If you trust that 7:30, this is what will help you get to that 7:40, or cement that 7:30 over there. Don't aim for a 7:70 in this 1 week. You will not even get that 7:30. If you have 2 weeks or if you have 40 hours, we can help. But 1 week means you probably have about 10 hours. You want to make sure that you cement that 7:30. Okay. Again, here is a case study of a student, Malvika. DJ, you want to just see if your audio is good? So otherwise, I will take this over as well.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is that better?
It's much better, yes.
think it's yeah, perfect. So I guys, Malvika's case is also very interesting because I worked with her and I remember specifically telling her that these are the things that you need to do, and this is precisely what we have spoken to you about, and this is what helped her to increase 50 points in 26 days. Now, when Malvika first wrote to me, if you notice her score, it's not a bad score at all. It's a really good score, right? And there's just and what I
DJ,
realized was that
DJ, your voice is
more
going
than
off.
any
So I think okay.
hello.
So I think let me just speak and then you can add to it because you worked with her. I actually interviewed her, so her interview should be coming on our YouTube channel fairly soon. So Malvika, just from a background, she's someone who has a prior MBA. This is a real name, by the way. If you Google Malvika Vakil, you'd be able to get to her LinkedIn as well. And she's aiming for a top school. Why? Because she's already gotten an MBA from a fairly good school in India, and she's now in the States over here. And she had a really solid verbal score, very solid quant score as well. And for her, the key thing was how do you get to a higher score from this? Um, and again, within 26 days, she was able to get to a score of 730, which she was aiming for a 740. The 730 was a slight disappointment for her, and more so because she was constantly scoring Q50 over here. And this is what we call as a last mile push with regards to that action plan um, in this case. You can see the timing of the emails. This is 8:26 over here, and this is um, let's just go over here. 9:22. Again, doing the basics right, starting with her abilities. We started with her abilities. We made sure we created an improvement plan for her, and then as we did that, we defined metrics that she had to hit, and she improved as those metrics were there. Let me add DJ. DJ actually joined back again. Let me add him to the stream. So again, improvements such as these are very possible. This is 20 days of reasonable effort, and you can go from a 75th, 73rd, 74th percentile to a 94th percentile. Actually, P41 is 94th percentile in that time. Okay. Has an example of a guy who wanted to actually go to a 730, right? Fahad? Yeah, so he ended up getting to a 770 over here. So he scored 700, and he got back to us. He actually, or did he even want to, or did we just push him to do that? What was it? I don't remember.
I pushed them to.
Yes. So we pushed him to doing that. We really said, hey, man, you can do better. He scored 700. He was reasonably happy with this. And then we thought he'd get to a 740, and which is the metrics that we defined. So you want to just talk about what you did?
Yeah. So this is basically a very, very key thing that Deepak actually did give him a full-blown analysis of his ESR. And that's all great. Those are all great data points. But Deepak mentioned something that was very, very clear that listen, Fahad, if you do not manage your time well on these XYZ blocks in this manner and revise those XYZ topics, there's no way that you're going to get to a 730. And by the way, the delta from a 700 to a 730 is very fine. It's genuinely very fine. So you need to work on a very, very focused manner, which is what you can see over here.
So
He's mentioned that RC is something that you need to do.
DJ, do you want to just turn your video off? That way your uplink would be optimized. Yes, I think the audio is going to be much better.
I think this will be much better now.
Yes. So what do you see over
Right.
here
So,
is...
I mean, Deepak basically gave the feedback.
So Deepak gave the feedback and he said, hey, RC, this is where you bombed. And this is the impact over here where you lost 2 to 3 points over here. And then we identified algebra and geometry specifically for him. Okay. So that's something that you need to do. And he said, hey, even though the ESR doesn't tell us, but because Deepak and pretty much every GMAT strategy expert has seen enough ESRs, they are able to really say, maybe what you need to work on are hard problems. The other thing was that they could look at his stats in Scholar on the Scholar Learning platform over here. This guy, so just to look at this is 5th of October is when he took his test. first attempt. On 26th is when he wrote back to us, and he scored a 770. For someone who really said, hey, a quant course is not as well famed, I think one thing you've got to recognize is that as EGMAT, we are an organization where 50 of us work together. So what you hear about us 2 years ago, or even 2 months ago, is something that's not true. Our courses are in their worst shape when you buy them, because we continue to enhance our courses. I mean, so our quant course a year ago is very different from our quant course today. Our quant course tomorrow is going to be very different from what it is today also. And if you want to really just look at just the quant course piece over here, let me just share this to really say, hey, what do people say about our quant course? So what did these people do differently in the second time? I mean, they focused on their weakness. When you are at that score of 700, you've got to focus on your weakness. And to focus on your weakness, you first have to identify exactly what you need to do, step one, which is where Ashutosh, Dhananjay, Deepak, Archit, and Nava, they are skilled to do this. And then the second thing is you've got to have metrics that you want to hit. So and we tell you which content on the platform you need to go back revise, because most of these students have already done that content, but they're not as familiar with it. So that's the revision strategy. And then what metrics do they need to hit on the platform in Scholaranium. Once they hit those metrics, this improvement happens automatically over there. So with that, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. At this point in time, I'd be happy to, or rather, DJ and I would be happy to take on any questions that you have.
I know it's quite late, and you guys have really hanged on, listened to all of us, and it's really nice. And this is why we really want to give back.
Okay, DJ, I think you want to turn your video off, maybe. Yes. So also, let me actually paste links for the session over here. Here's the link to strategy session that you can see. That you can really see over here, and you can join. What's our package price? It's all on our website. We have verbal, quant, and GMAT online packages that you can buy. And yeah, so again, if you again, the first thing you have to really say is, are we the right people for you? I mean, is this the right course? And which is where what we recommend is, at the end of strategy session, take a look at the free trial over there, and then if you feel, if you learn from the free trial, if you benefit from it, then definitely we can talk about the course. In terms of just being connected with us, here are some of the links that I want to share with you, just to really, if you want to get to know more about you, connect with us on LinkedIn over here. Let's just go. So connect with on my me on my LinkedIn. You'd be able to see get about 30 to 40 articles a month over there. We write those many articles. Pretty much anything that goes on in the MBA world, we kind of make sure that we educate you on that. So that's something that we do. Also, again, if you want to really see if this is the right course for you, take a look at the free trial over here, and or talk to one of the mentors through this link. Any other question, guys?
I was hoping for at least one difficult question.
Thank you, Arish. We do too. One thing I would say is, uh, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's. I mean, it's an excellent source of motivation. Is what I would say. So watch this over here, and not just motivation to do well on the GMAT. You'd also see people who've gotten into top B schools. You'd be able to see their journeys over there, and so I think that way you'd be able to see their B school journeys, how they position themselves. Um, so I would really make sure that you do that. Here are some of the links to that as well. So to B school journeys. So, all right. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It was wonderful having you guys, and I want to thank GMAT Club for allowing us to host this session. Okay, let's look at Shweta's scores. If you're at stage 2, Shweta, so stage 2 in which subsection is something that we would need to know over here. And have you done cementing? So this is kind of a classical question that you send to Ashutosh and his team, and they would kind of analyze and tell you what to do next. And if needed, they'll record a personalized video for you.
Yeah, I think she's written to us, Rajat. Shweta's already written to us, and I think Nawar replied today as well.
Okay. So yeah. So Shweta, then I would go with Nava's recommendation, because I'm going to just give you some advice over here. Nava will have looked at probably about 80 data points, analyzed those, and then would have given you feedback. What is mentorship? That's a great question. So let me actually tell you what mentorship is.
We get this in every session we do.
Yes. It's a mentorship is what we call as an internal R&D program that we have within GMAT. You see this chart over here, and where we say, hey, we have these 50% of students who do this, and this get to this. Okay, and so mentorship is an internal R&D program that we do with our students, which we started actually doing in January. We are, I think, about on our 4th cohort right now, or actually in terms of cohorts, it's probably the 7th or 8th, but 4th cycle of cohorts is where we are. And our goal really is to say, if we actually help people do X, Y, and Z, can we increase that success rate from that 50% to 90-95%? So to get to that score of 720. So we work with a group of 50 students, and we kind of closely monitor this. That's another project that Ashutosh and his team does internally to really say, okay, what metrics determine success? And we've been doing this R&D over the last year and a half or so. And the goal of mentorship is that whatever we learn during this, that goes into improving our onboarding for you guys. It goes into us building videos so that everyone actually benefits from it. So with a mentee, each customer success champion or GMAT strategy expert, as we call him, spends about 15 hours over that 3-month engagement. DJ, what is it?
Yeah. That's the correct number.
Yeah,
but it's very
hours.
intensive.
Yes. It's super intense. We spend 15 hours. We don't charge you for it. It's because it's our internal R&D. So we pick up the budget for it. As long as you're an GMAT student, and we don't, and you get invited to being a mentee, and then you accept the terms and conditions of it. That's all that you have to do. We recommend that you put in the effort, you follow our directions, and you do regular updates every 2 days over there. So on every student in our mentorship program, from an overall standpoint, we spend about close to about 70 to 80,000 rupees, or about $1,100 or so. But again, the goal really is to do that learning so that everyone um, can benefit. Just in terms of the spread of benefit, to really say, we worked with about 130 odd students who we started this mentorship program with. 60, 70 of them completed it. 50 of them have actually gotten their target GMAT scores, which is 730 or higher. And the benefit or the learnings from those 70 students, they now they are spread across 10,000 paying students that we have on our platform, so or 2,000 students every month. So that's what mentorship is, Shweta. I know you wanted probably a small answer. That's the long answer for it. All right. Okay, guys, with that, I want to thank everyone. I know many of you stayed for a very long time. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. And I want to thank GMAT Club for allowing us to host this as well. Goodbye and have a good day.